What's up, everybody? Welcome to another infield chat. Today's is going to be a little bit different than what we've done in the past. So Tyler and I are going to take this first half, and then we're going to record it on a later date with Tyler and Casey and Brandon. So we're going to try to get everyone in here so we can get some different thoughts and maybe some different ideas on how they process their routines. So today, obviously, we're looking at building routines, trying to understand how to become more consistent, help maybe not so visual movers start to learn how to play a little bit more instinctively and stuff like that. So let's dive into this here. So some examples of pregame practice routines, pregame routines. I like to isolate certain body parts. I always flow that into ground ball work, but I start with some kind of isolation drill. So if you're working with training gloves or anything like that, I like using Valley. I start with the Eagle K47 when I'm working pick work. This is something where if I'm working any kind of two-handed reception, I like the flat mitt. One-handed reception, I like going with the K47. I always kind of progress that through into the 975S though, because this is a more conventional shape with the glove. And then obviously we flow this into our larger mitt, which makes more sense. Because we always want to finish these drills with something that we're going to be using in game, whether you're using just a regular hand or you're using the larger mitts. So you can do this pick routine as a forehand. I prefer to do this with forehand and backhand, and then kind of in between we can throw in the flat mitts and work on kind of maybe some pattern work throughout as well. So you can really get specific and vary these drills, change ball weights and sizes just to kind of vary hops. But with who I'm working with here, she's kind of getting introduced to a little bit more of just the hand flexion and the correct rake move and stuff like that. So we want to create a repeatable hop. That way we can kind of start to acquire this skill. So then we can adjust this to standing movement. And again, we have this graduation of going from a smaller mitt to a larger mitt. And this is difficult. This is not an easy thing to do, especially with the smaller size mitts. You really have to kill these things, right? So it's fun to work with younger players on this for sure, because they're really kind of learning like what's too much in terms of our movement with our hand, what are the right angles I need to set, stuff like that. And again, you always want to finish with the larger mitts. That way you still get a feel for what you're going to be using in game. We want things to translate to game. That's the whole point. So this stuff's really, really, really good. One of the other things we do is kind of isolating the hand. So I've seen a lot of guys do this. Here I'm using a hack attack with essentially these small rubber balls that we use for our 5 and 6 year olds. But what we've got here is the balls kind of have different textures. So you get different flights and it alters the hops. And I like this with our higher level players, just so we understand like, okay, do we stay more vertical on this pathing? Do we need to kind of change our hand angle up higher? Stuff like that. So one of the things, Tyler, I might have got this from you, but thinking of the hand as a steering wheel as the ball comes higher and more away from our body, turning up and being able to make that move is really important. I like that cue. Our guys seem to understand that pretty well. This is Alex Kelling at Ohio State. He makes some of these plays look really easy. This is a pretty difficult drill. But I like the hop variation. I think this makes a lot of sense, especially for like a pregame routine where you're trying to figure out what your eyes are seeing, making sure your hands are tracking things the correct way, stuff like that. So this is a really fun one. I like to pair this pregame, not so much like like an everyday type thing for warm up on practice days. I like using the smaller mitts for that.
Yeah, I think the
Tyler, I
different
don't know.
balls.
Did you see this drill?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, but real quick, back to the last one. I really love
Yeah,
kind of the blend of block training and random training right here, right? Like you're
yeah,
isolating every day. This should be a staple, but you're also mixing something in to add a little flavor to it. And then, yeah, by going bare hand, using, a flat glove, using mini gloves, using your own glove too, just randomizes it a little bit as well. So guys might not get bored, right?
mhm,
And then you're also working on specific things
right.
like the bare hand for me, guys that have really bad glove angles. I love just, hey, let's go bare hand. Let's really look at it because for most of the time when guys have glove angle problems, they don't know it. They don't realize it until you take the glove off and they actually see the angle of their wrist. So I really like this. I'm gonna have to get the
Mhm.
the brand of these mesh balls because I really like that idea.
There's an MLB logo on them, and I think part of the reason these hops are so varied, it's kind of dumb luck, but we have our younger guys hit these with the bats, and
Hmm.
some of them we use for throwing. Well,
Yeah.
some of these really get beat up, so you get a different texture on some of the balls, which really alters the launch through the machine, and then
Hmm.
it also makes some of the balls harder, some softer because they've just been hit more.
Yeah.
So we got pretty lucky with this, but I have seen a lot of different groups use kind of like orange balls with
Hmm.
altered flights. I don't know if they're different weights or if the texture's been altered or anything like that, but yeah, the variability is huge. That's something I was
Yeah.
trying to hunt, especially for my higher level guys, just because, like you said, there's some monotony there, and not that that's a bad thing, but when it becomes more of a mastery process as opposed to the acquisition, I like the variability. It allows us to feel like it's more game like, stuff like that.
1000%.
This was kind of a point of discussion online when this video came out. This is Vanderbilt working with their machine with their flat pads. I think more of the comments on this were like, man, they're really deep. Their feet are pretty narrow. Um, Now, I like this in the sense that you see a lot of hip drift from the mobility of the players. That's kind of what I like to get from this, and then also like fielding things out in front, like they kind of have to from this position, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I'm sure like you go through and watch in-game video. I'm sure the fielding
Hmm.
position looks a little different than this. Like to me, it's they're
Yeah.
working on something specific, like you talked about, getting the hands out in front, working that two-hand lane, getting low. Just getting low in general.
Yeah.
Amateur infielders, as you know, that you work with all the time, sometimes get the butt too
Hmm.
high, right? Like there's got to be a good balance between being too high and too low.
Well, it's interesting too. Um, for those of you who don't have access or don't know what that black mat is, because I'm not, to be honest with you, I'm not for sure what brand that is. Uh, but I've used like batting circle turf pads, and those work fine. Um, Tyler, do you guys have a thing that you use for your prep work, or are you guys using just the surface of the field?
I'd mix it up. I probably should be better at
Yeah.
putting out the hitting mat. Like that's usually what we'll use, or like just a little slab of turf that we'll just throw out there. That way, it's not, especially when you do high reps and you have a lot of guys. If it keeps hitting that same
Right.
spot, now it's going to take some funky bounces. So throwing a mat out like that
Right.
or a hitter's mat, now you're going to continue to get that true hop for sure.
Yeah. Plus, you keep the grounds guys off your tail too. Don't want
Yeah.
to make those guys
And
mad.
And I don't know, I've had the pleasure of watching a Vanderbilt like pregame routine.
Hmm.
Sometimes they mix this into like their BP rotations too. Something,
Yeah.
hey, I think you definitely can look at incorporating in a practice standpoint, or even like a pregame routine, like in your BP rotations, especially when you got like a big team, maybe like 25 hitters that you're going through. Put a station over
Hmm.
off to the side, so those guys that are on the field getting live reps, there it's not chaos out there. There's not like three guys at one
Right.
position. You can take a couple guys, put them off to the side like this, and they're still they're getting good fundamental work.
For sure. For sure. And so here's one. We're gonna get out of this here so you guys can see what we're talking about. But I really like this. This is something sent to me by Tyler. I'm gonna turn off the volume so we can talk over this. If you have not watched this, please watch this with volume because Kai's awesome. But we're gonna kind of just watch through this and kind of give our thoughts. So it looks like from what I watched earlier, Kai starts by addressing, okay, here's your stakes. We're playing infield in here, and it's more of like a return to the base. And so they're working about timing with ball drops. So this is really really cool stuff. Um, but you'll notice when he's teaching, he's trying to address the visual by showing, and then as he shows, he's also trying to address the auditory aspects too of the details with kind of his words and kind of pointing out certain movements. That's really really good. He's talking about staying low.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and what I like, in any practice setting, especially when you're working with a large amount of infielders, right? Like say
Mm-hmm.
college level or even high school level, you usually anywhere from maybe 8 to 12 infielders at a time, right?
Yeah.
First basemen always get overlooked. It's, hey, let's throw the first baseman over at first base. You guys catch up. And that's the extent of their bag work for the day.
Mm-hmm.
I highly encourage you to sometimes allow your players to own their own development sometimes, break them up into groups, build out some, rotations and incorporate, some position work. And that will allow you, hey, middle infield time, third base time, but incorporate and, have the first baseman work on some sort of fundamental work like this, to
Hmm.
where they're even getting better. I really like the ball drop drill here. It, really helps with timing,
Yeah.
getting low, reaching, for that short hop, creating that short hop. Have you ever done this, Cody?
Yeah, I think one of the things that when I'm working with guys on any kind of ball drop thing, because we do this too with our infielders sometimes on like a rake move,
Mm-hmm.
but it promotes that rake move not flourishing up,
Yeah.
and it kind of just by the way the drill's created creates a pathing that's a little bit more linear as opposed to you trying to get vertical with your movement. It stays lateral. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that's something really important for first basemen to know, especially guys who are secondary first basemen, because especially at the college level, if you're hitting first base, sometimes is a spot where we toss the guy in that can pick it a little bit, right?
Yeah.
But that pick move is a little bit more kind of loud at first base sometimes.
Yeah.
And so these guys want to get super vertical and aggressive with their rake move. And to maybe get extension, sometimes it's called for. But you'll notice here, like the teaching point is not to lift, right?
Yeah.
We're working out and through. So by kind of like introducing this concept, it does allow them to feel that better, because if you're working up on this move, you're not showing the pocket the same way, right? You're having to catch this at a different height if that's the case.
Bobby Dickerson, there's a video out there too of like Bobby Dickerson working with first baseman, and he says like stop the baseball, right?
Yeah.
Something I always tell our infielders is like it's like you're a catcher. Like I want you
Mhm.
to just catch and stop it. Like your job isn't to have all this big movement. Like you just got to catch and stop the baseball. So yeah, what do you got
And
on this one here? The footwork drill.
so it's funny. They start introducing the variable footwork. My thought is like, okay, we're trying to make them feel what it feels like to be off balance,
Hmm.
right? Because the main thing about first base when it comes to securing receptions is you want balance and you want rhythm. So here he's introducing the rhythm, but he's indirectly, I don't even know if this is the main point, but what's being felt here is like when we're off step, when we're off rhythm, we're feeling that, and how much more difficult it is to receive in that fashion. So I think what this promotes on my end is like, okay, can we get back to the bag in a space and time where we're comfortable and balanced with our reception? And can we make that so we're more balanced and we already have rhythm in a smaller window? Because that will expand our range. If we can get there later and still receive with balance,
Yeah.
that means we can expand our range. Now, if you're a guy who doesn't have a ton of range, usually it's because you're too late getting to the bag and you're off balance. You can't make a good reception, right? So when it comes to like just creating a good infield and like creating good ground coverage, a lot of that has to do with how much ground your first baseman can cover too. And then
Hmm.
also how can you get back to the bag with balance and rhythm?
Yeah. I think yeah, the rhythm piece is huge, and it's helping promote that here. And really, like if you do this drill yourself, you're very uncomfortable when you first start
Yeah.
doing it, right? Like it kind of creates that chaos, and it speeds guys up a little bit to hey get their body under control. So that's why I love this drill.
Well, and it's funny, this is kind of like look and find it type drill, but traditionally your first basemen aren't always the fleetest of foot, right?
Yeah,
But you look at the best
not the best
receivers.
answers.
Yeah. But you look at like objectively the best receivers in the game right now, and it's not that they're like crazy sprint speed guys, but you're watching the footwork and it is fast.
Yeah,
Like we talk about fielding ground balls as a dance. Like your footwork around the bag is to me much more intricate than you trying to field a ground ball, because now you don't get to move in free space. You're limited by the base, right? So you've got to be able to move with that base. It's like having the world's worst dance partner. They just stay there, right?
hmm
But being able to kind of like maneuver yourself and understand, hey, how do I work with this? Is super important. Now you're noticing this guy here. He's using one of the Valley trainers, the smaller mitt, first baseman's mitt, which those are really really
you
cool.
can always mix that into really any drill you do, right?
Hmm.
Just
For
promoting
sure.
pocket accuracy, which I love. Like, and you don't have to do it every day, but it's a good just to mix it in there, especially guys that have those big movements, like the big rake that you're talking about. For
Yeah.
first baseman in particular, like throw that glove in there because
Hmm.
you can't have big movements when you throw that valley glove on.
Right. One is it's so cool, like when you're watching these guys work, right? And you get to see a little bit more of the humanity of this process than you would watching the games live because there just
Yeah.
is there's so much more failure in the space, which is
Yeah, they mess up quick,
appropriate.
which is good, right?
Hmm.
Like you want the game to be harder, right? So,
Hmm.
well, you want
Need
practice
to
to be
practice
harder,
the
so the
hardest.
game's easier, right? So,
So that I mean that's really really awesome stuff. Let's move on here to Wash because he has some really really good stuff. I think he's with Cal Ripken here. Um, I'm gonna mute this one too. So Wash is I Tyler, we've talked about this a little bit before. Wash is a huge proponent of the flat pad.
yeah, he loves
Notice
the
the
flat.
posture that we're working at here. It's
A
still a much
little
more
different,
sunken posture.
yeah, but a
Yeah, it's
little
a little
different
different
than
than
even
Vanderbilt.
the chest isn't as high up, the little
A
bit
little bit
wider
wider base.
legs. Yeah,
Yeah, but you'll notice the
every
press move
everything
is the same.
everything's pressed through right here.
Mhm.
I don't know if we see any funneling in with
Right,
this
and I
glove.
think that's something too where like the ability to do both is very important. Um,
Yep.
one of the things that I'm kind of ignorant on is with this flat pad, I don't see a ton of funnel moves. Now, I've used that in my practice where we're funneling with a flat pad,
Hmm.
but when I watch higher level guys work with the flat pad, very rarely is it ever a funnel. It's usually a press. I wonder if that's something where when it feels like the glove's flatter, we're moving forward in that move in game, or if maybe as we start the funnel, it feels like it's closing in on you a little bit more as you start to make that exchange. So I
Yep.
wonder if that's why they do it like that.
Yeah. I also, for me in our stationary drills, I love incorporating like that high toe,
Yeah.
for right-handed
Hmm.
thrower, that high left toe for the, left-handed thrower, the high right toe,
Hmm.
just even in the back of their mind think, hey, there's timing to fielding a ground ball.
Yeah.
And then, when we talk about the press through, that's what allows you to be able to press through on a
Right.
ground ball that you might get that short hop. So, just something to just add in here.
Well,
But
and it's neat. Like you watch where Albies receives these, right? A lot of these he's working up, especially with his one hand. He's not soaking in much with his one hand move. But
mhm,
with the flat glove now, it's much less aggressive of a move. When he was on two knees, it looked like he was really focusing on pressing through with that flat mitt. Here,
mhm,
it looks like he's killing it
yeah,
where he's receiving at. It doesn't look like he's pressing through much.
yeah,
And one of the cool things about that is with your body in motion towards first base, your body does kind of make that press through move for you sometimes. And so maybe that early on press through move when you're on your knees is something to think about. Okay, we're receiving this out front. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Because even that move that was less pressy. It was still pressing through, but it was way less aggressive than that first set of drills there. Even
yeah.
that one. Now he got eaten up.
He did.
Starts to soak it in.
But I think when we think of Wash, you think of routine, right? You
Yeah.
think of a guy he's got a plan. He puts guys in position to progress. We saw what he started with knee drill, right, with the
Mhm.
flat glove. Then he got him up on his feet. Now you're seeing kind of like the short fungo routine,
Mhm.
which is good, right? Now you and I both would love to see a little bit more variability, where you mix in not just the flat glove, but a nice valley glove,
Mhm.
mixing in some other things too, right?
Yeah.
But from a routine standpoint, Wash is a true staple to that.
He's awesome, man. He's awesome. All right, so this is from Brian McTaggart. I'm gonna turn this volume off too. But here we're using this is the heater, right, Tyler? The red thing.
Yeah, the red
Yep.
heater machine, which honestly probably my favorite tool to use, um, for guys like, the closer you get. I mean, the ball's actually coming out pretty good, so you can really challenge guys, move them up even closer than this. You can put them on the knee and do knee drills. You can do stationary like this. You can, tell guys go back, and now you're fielding actual ground balls. But you don't have to worry about risk of injury because the ball's coming out. It's a soft. We use the driveline smash balls,
Yep.
and heck, I have guys as close as probably 7, 8 feet away. So it's humming at them, really locking in on that pocket accuracy because if you don't catch it in the right spot, you have no chance. Now, we haven't from that close used the Valley glove. It's usually when we back up because it is pretty hard to just use the Valley glove from that close to
Well,
work
and
on
I'd
it.
recommend from this distance using one of the smaller mitts because those are more for pocket presentation. The I'd say smaller mitts, they're all small, but the K47 is one of their smaller mitts. The kill spot on that is so small, but it does help in this space because it reinforces where you're catching that. Now, if you're going to be repping out ground balls, my recommendation is to use the larger mitt. I think it's a 975, just because it's a more conventional shape. I think there are some plays with that smaller mitt you just realistically aren't going to be able to make from a farther distance consistently or to where it's going to be repeatable enough. So I like pairing the extra small mitt with just a smaller glove. One, because of the shaping. Again, when we're taking live ground balls, I like the more conventional shaping, especially if you're having the ability to work with one hand as a forehand and a backhand. If you're focusing solely on that two-handed reception, I'm a big fan of the flat mitt, but that smaller glove, I love for pick work. I think that's kind of made for that, and at least for me, my guys respond better to that as well. I think
Cody, go ahead.
One of the cool things about this drill too, if you watch right away, especially this guy taking his rep here, so they do a little bit of like teaching here, but watch how aggressive he is early when he's not in the correct position. So he's going to switch his hips, but he's in the wrong position here, and the ball kind of like, do you see the rake moves really loud there? Yes. As he starts to get kind of more settled in, he's starting to adjust his body. Watch how quiet the glove gets.
Yeah.
And so this speaks a little bit to the ability to put yourself in a position to make a good reception, right? And so when I'm working on this with guys, we talk about the quietness of our hands. And when we do need to get loud with that hand, extend through on a press move or something like that, all that speaks to now is like, okay, now when we back up to the field, we need to really, really hammer in. Hey, can we put ourselves in a position where we don't have to be aggressive with our rake move? Can we be quiet with our hands? Now we can't always do that, but that's the goal, right? That's a high percentage reception. Yeah. So by feeling this in this drill and especially with the variability of the hop, because that's something I love, that reinforces the concept of like our feet put us in the position to make the play. And that gives us the higher chance of securing the ball. It's not just the rake move being correct, because that's a part of it too. But getting your feet to put you in the spot to make that correct move is super, super important.
Yeah. I just kind of noticed this, and you might have to go back a little bit here, Cody. But do you notice what the guys are doing in the back there? They're actually doing a short fungo back there. Yep. I wonder. My mind went to, all right, like this is block training, right? You're stationary. Yep. You're kind of getting, it's 2 hops almost every time. Back there, from the 2 swings that I saw, like it was a little different. The infielder had to move his feet a little bit more. I think that's brilliant on just being able to do 2. Hey, like, well, you're going to go do machine work, and then you're going to hop over there and do fungo, and then they're going to flip flop.
It's interesting because I know a lot of guys, it's not everyone, but a lot of guys will go with like kind of an a la carte type deal. Now, I mean, the amount of data we have on these guys is incredible. So we might see something here where like these guys are guys who we want to really hunt that correct pocket presentation.
Yeah.
And maybe this guy in the back, it's like, okay, let's address his attack angles after prep step. Because you're noticing here with the rep,
whatever it might be. Yeah.
It's a prep step and then creating a drop step with his left so he can not necessarily get his body hard to the right, but create a good angle to attack through to the left. That's cool. That's a good catch. I didn't see that at all when I was setting this up, by the way. That's great.
I just noticed it, so.
That's awesome. All right, let's get back to the other stuff here. So here's one that you guys have done that I really like. This is something I'll be stealing from my guys. So it looks like, Tyler, correct me if I'm wrong here, the machine's set up in the same location. You're just changing the location based on where the base is?
Yep. So that back base, right, that ball is going to be a little slower to get to them, right? So for me, my teaching, our second baseman always start on the back side of the bag. So now they can react and adjust from there. So that back bag, it's a little slower. We're going to work through it. right? Now we have that offset base. That's
Mhm.
kind of, hey, not the most ideal feed, but they still got to, I still want our second baseman to be able to catch it
Mhm.
and be able to turn double play. And then the front bag,
Yeah.
that ball's it's coming a little bit, it's humming at them. So it's basically, hey, catch, replace the feet, and throw. So just working on those different turns. This day, it was a kind of a lighter throw day, so we didn't mix in throws.
Mhm.
But if we had like a heavier throw day, we could set this up to where they're actually making throws as well. I've also done it where those
Yeah.
bases are turned and we've done shortstop, but I just like it's high reps. We're getting different types
Yeah.
of feeds. Guys are getting a lot of work in.
Mhm. And it's so cool too. I wonder if like and your guys are athletic as heck too, so you're probably having guys mix positions at times. And as third baseman, right? I say as third baseman, shortstops could get something from this too. But the feeds to second base that force them to turn the glove laterally as opposed to
Mhm.
staying vertical, either
Yep.
tall or shallow, this backhand here is a much more difficult transfer and reception and throw, um, especially because you're taking your momentum away from first, but also because of just the glove angle you get. That transfer is much cleaner when the glove stays vertical. And then we can watch here when the glove turns over, it's much more difficult to find that quickly. And you already feel like you have to rush anyway because your momentum's been taken away from you, right? And so that just
Yeah.
gives you a different, especially as a third baseman, but a different understanding of where you want to feed this ball, right? That's
Yeah.
so cool, man.
I like, and I thought you brought up a really good point
That's a
too.
really,
Like
really good.
in the college game, we're still out of shift. So this guy that's going right now, he's mostly shortstop. But we'll shift, and I send our shortstop over to that right side of the infield.
Mhm.
So he might have to turn a double play like this if we're in a shifted position. And then like I said, all of our
Right.
middle guys are going to get work both short, second. Um, I like just the three base. It just hey, it's
Mhm.
different. You could also do a variation of this drill where we're working tag plays where you throw, now you have it uh, short hopping and you got a forehand pick, a backhand pick, and a bag that you have to create a long
Ooh,
hop as well. But just a bunch of different variations of these
awesome.
three bag drills that you can, I mean, you let your brain, work and just get super creative. But I
Yeah.
just like it from a high rep standpoint, being specific and just making things just different for them.
Yeah, and I mean, especially on a lighter day, like this is something where you can really crush the reps without killing the load, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
1000%.
that's awesome. There's a lot of return here for not a lot of input, which is what you're looking for, right? So that's great. Awesome. Now, Tyler, this is one of yours, right?
Yeah, yeah. So batting practice to
Looks like
me,
it's
like
Lindor taking a step step.
yeah, every
Mhm.
rep in batting practice, he's moving. This is something I stress with our guys is batting practice is the most realistic work you can get in as an infielder, right? We can do all this, fundamental work, glove work, fielding footwork drills as possible, but nothing is as game like as batting practice, right? Getting live reads. And even though you might not, in batting practice,
Mhm.
you might get 5 ground balls total in your round that you're on defense. But more importantly, you're working timing. You're
Mhm.
working that timing of the prep step, which is so important. You're learning to get off of your prep with your first step and reacting, reading the guy's swing. Um, I've heard as things, in a batting practice routine, you can mix in fungo, right? Or you can just go live reads. I would encourage if you do like hitting
Yeah.
fungos during batting practice, still allow for some time to just get live reads too. Maybe if it's the hitters are taking 4 rounds, maybe you go 2 rounds of fungo and then 2 rounds of live. You can mix that up
Mhm.
however, but within that as well, like take ground balls from the different positions. Go from a pulled position, not just straight up. Go from a shifted position. Get as many different live reads that
Right.
you might make in game, and try to see how many plays you can make. But
Well,
if
and
a
it's
big
so
leaguer
cool. Like
can
one
do
of the
it,
things that you don't get to work on, like, yeah.
if a
I
big
mean, if they're doing it, why can't
yeah,
you, right?
yeah. So that's what I tell guys all the time is if a big leaguer can do it for every rep in batting practice for his 12 minutes that he's on defense, man, we can do it too.
Right. I mean, and it's funny. This guy that you've got here is objectively one of the best ground cover guys in the game right now. As one of the most mature in terms of age shortstops that's playing. It's impressive. But one of the things that's important, like, this is a tough move. I'm going to pause it. So he's getting his prep step. He's getting an airborne post-contact prep step. One of the moves he makes here is a ball's hit, and it's probably hit over here somewhere. But he's training that flight to get lateral, right?
Yep.
Now, he's not going hard at anything from like a go get it in the outfield standpoint because he's trying to make sure he doesn't kill himself in BP. But one of the things that's really important about this is that move. That move has to be quick. A lot of infielders are hesitant with that move. Look how fast he gets his feet turned.
And it's hard to do that in a fungo routine, right? It's hard to do that and replicate that in machine work. So batting practice, like, I mean, your point is so spot on. Like, but we know in game, Lindor's going to have to make that play at some point, and the only way he practices it right here. It's good.
Exactly. That's so cool. That's such a good video. All right, Tyler, that's all I got. So we're going to mesh this video with the video that the fellas make on Monday, and you guys will see that in the second half of the video. So thank you guys for watching. Tyler, thanks for hopping on. Thanks again for hopping on with the next one and kind of getting that orchestrated as well. So I appreciate it. Hope you guys got something out of this.
Thanks, Cody.